Let's see. Do you think if games dialed back some marketing, it could drop the cost of game makers? At time, that's the issue. It's from everything I can see, the marketing costs are fairly flat. It's the costs of developers, it's the costs of development. I think what they're realizing is post COVID, something really interesting happened where people started to realize that they're working for the boss and that they didn't necessarily need to do that. They were like, wait, the company needs me more than I need the company. I can go find a different job. So they're going to give me the benefits I want. They're going to pay me more. And there's been many articles in all sorts of business journals and stuff discussing this, but more like lower level workers have come back from COVID much more difficult for management. And I think it's because like working from home, people started to like reevaluate what was really important to them. They're like, I don't want to work my ass off working 12-hour days to barely make ends meet. You're going to pay me well if I'm going to do that, or I'm just going to go and leave work right when I'm scheduled to, and that's that. And it's the similar thing in the gaming space. One of the big changes that's happened in the gaming space also, which I think is good, but there are many like cascading effects, is that crunch is being largely phased out. It's still something that we discuss. It's still, an issue that is called out when people see it. But this was a big topic of conversation at the end of Grounded 2, the making of The Last of Us Part 2 that they talked about, where their whole goal was basically to eliminate crunch entirely from Naughty Dog, which is insane. I mean, crunch and Naughty Dog used to be synonymous. And so the fact that they're working hard on getting rid of crunch entirely is crazy. But that's what they were trying to do. I mean, that was the whole point, is that they wanted to make this big foundational change. And the thing is, when you break it down, just break it down by hours. Okay, like if you work 9 to 5, like maybe, with lunch breaks, you're expected to do 8 hours of labor in a day for 5 days a week, so 40 hours in the week. If you have crunch at your studio and you can eke out an extra maybe 3 hours from employees each day, maybe you convince them to stay 2 hours longer and eat while working. So they stay until 7 and they work through lunch. So you get an extra 3 hours, an extra 15 hours a week. Okay, boom. That's 15 hours a week extra. In 2.5 weeks, you've actually gained another week's worth of labor by crunching and working your employees even harder. So you've expedited the development process by getting more hours of work out of each employee by forcing them to crunch. That was, it used to be kind of a mainstay and a staple in the industry, and just a reality of it. If you wanted to work in video game development, you had to crunch. That's just what it was. And now a lot of these studios are trying very hard to shake that. And again, I think COVID helped with this because people were working from home and they realized, wait, it's insane that I'm working till 7 or 8 o'clock and I'm not, maybe I'm making overtime, maybe, but I'm missing out on like my kids' lives. I'm missing out on things I really care about and the human element for sake of all of this stuff. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So people kind of snapped out of it. And as a result, costs are going up because games are taking a lot longer to make. Because in some ways, it's cheaper to pay out overtime and get the game out sooner than it is to take longer on the game, have to pay out healthcare costs, have to extend the lease for your studio office, have to, I mean, even down to the little stuff where it's like, hey, we have to run the servers for an extra year during development effectively. And so that brings all sorts of server maintenance costs and IT costs and electricity costs and stuff that could be bypassed if we were to just get the game out earlier. So there's all sorts of cascading things that are affected when a company makes a decision as simple and obvious as, let's get rid of crunch. It seems like a no-brainer. Just get rid of crunch. It ends up making games take a lot longer, and it also has cascading effects budgetarily where games all of a sudden start to take a lot longer and are much more expensive. And we're seeing that now. And, all of these companies are like, video games are all of a sudden getting so much more expensive. Honestly, they should have always been more expensive to make than they have been historically. The only reason that you were able to get away with it being cheaper is because you were taking advantage of your employees and working them to the bone. Like, it's like you've just been used to things being crappy and being able to take advantage of your employees. And now that you're not able to take advantage of your employees the same way, you're struggling to justify the cost of games and figure out how to make a viable business model as a result. I mean, the market's going to have to adjust. I think you probably start to see games that are much smaller in scope. I think games like The Last of Us Part 2, God of War Ragnarok, those are probably a thing of the past largely, unless they can come up with quadruple A pricing that Yves Guillemot would be thrilled to hear about, where it's like, yeah, there's $60 or rather $70 games, and then we're going to have these big games like The Last of Us Part 3 or God of War Egypt, whatever, and those games are ultra premium and are like 40 to 50 hours long, crazy high production value, and those games are like $100. I don't know which route they go. What's clear is what's going on right now does not continue to work. You can't do it. So they have to come up with some other way of doing things, either by charging more upfront for the games, or they need to make games cheaper by making them smaller. And I'm not sure which way they're going to go. I honestly don't know which way they go. I think both are potentially workable. I do think there's a world where people are willing to pay $100 a copy for like Elden Ring 2. I do think there are people that would do that. Many millions of people that would do that. I think it's a slippery precedent, of course, because once you establish that that's an option for publishers, you'll get a lot of games that try to charge $100 that really should not. I would say like let them crash and burn. As you've seen, like when Skull and Bones comes out at 70, thinking that they can just casually charge that and people will buy it, the game tanks and crashes and burns. So I think the market has a way of kind of filtering these things automatically, but...
Fearless Wolf donated £5 through Super Chat. A mate of mine who makes games. He just got a 30% increase. He works from home in England. Head office is based in Holland.
Wow. I mean, that means he's probably a very valuable asset for them. 30% pay increase. Talent is valuable. I'll tell you what, talent is valuable. Like the big thing with Meta, my dad has worked in the past with like Microsoft and big tech companies and stuff. And I was talking to him about all this stuff with like Meta and Apple and hiring AI talent and everything. And one of the interesting things is that I hadn't thought of it before, but it makes sense. Meta apparently, and Apple too, they will just hire like AI engineers. Even if they don't have work for them to do, they will hire them just to have them on staff so they can't work for Meta or they can't work for Apple or vice versa. Like they'll just hire them to keep them out of the other guy's office.
Puzzler 69
Which is
donated
crazy.
$25. According to the leaks, Wolverine is supposed to come out in 26. But what game do you think PS will release in 25? Happy Friday, love the videos.
Yeah, thank you, my friend. Happy Friday to you too. I think 2025 Sony probably has, I think it's about time that we see whatever the Days Gone studio is working on. So potentially that. Ghost of Tsushima 2 is a possibility as well. But that would definitely be a quick turnaround for them. There's the potential for, I think Death Stranding 2 was that 2025? I don't remember what they said. Yeah, they said 2025. So Death Stranding 2. Blue Point Games has been working on something original, so we'll see whatever that is. But they probably have 2 games for the year. That's what they've done historically. Is they have a spring game and then they have a fall game. Death Stranding 2 is probably fall. So what do you put in the spring? Maybe The Last of Us, or not The Last of Us, maybe Ghost of Tsushima 2, maybe. But again, that's a pretty tight turnaround. So I don't know. Uncharted Remaster, maybe. What are the Horizon devs working on? The Horizon devs are apparently like all hands on deck for a big online game they've hired a bunch of people for. So apparently they are working on, there was like leaked concept art. It's really like generic and hard to gauge. I don't know if it's been confirmed as real or not. It's just people said it was leaked and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Who knows? Maybe they leaked it intentionally. But it's very like cartoony and very Fortnite looking. And the rumors have been that it's going to basically be like a cooperative Monster Hunter type game in a art style that at least in the past was reminiscent of Fortnite. We'll see what it actually looks like. Honestly, if it is just like straight up Monster Hunter, but like really polished and with quadruple A levels of production value, I could see that being fun. I could see that being cool, but it does get me worried that there's another live service game in the works. But then again, Helldivers, nobody expected that to pop off, so maybe that blows up. Maybe that works. Who knows? I do think they're going to need to work on something other than Horizon after this, because I think Horizon is getting franchise fatigue a little bit. The sequel for Zero Dawn, so Forbidden West, it did well, but I don't think it was the huge step up they were hoping for. I don't think it really blew anybody away. It was just kind of more Horizon. That was my frustration, is that it just felt like, I don't know, it just felt like Horizon 1.5. Like it didn't really feel like a full sequel. So maybe a full sequel is enough, but I don't know. Isn't there a Horizon MMO being made with another studio? This is when I need Joel Raptor. Joel Raptor knows all the stuff with Horizon because he's a big Horizon fan. So maybe we'll ask him on the podcast to do a recap of it, because I think there's an MMO being made, and then they're working on their own multiplayer game, which is different. They already released the VR thing. So I don't know. He took my thing.